Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. I don't often talk too much about personal things, but I do have a personal favorite holiday, and that is coming up here in the United States. And that's Thanksgiving. I don't know why, but I've always loved Thanksgiving. Um, we have a lot to be grateful for. I certainly do. Um, Maybe not everyone, but it's a great time to reach out to family, friends, and anyway, coming up. So I want to wish everyone in the U.S. I'll wish all over the world, but the U.S. in particular, that we celebrate it here, and I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up in just a couple of days. Let's see. Our blog this week is A UFO Falls to the Ground in Yorkshire, England. Another great one by Charles Lear. And our guest, our guest is a different guest than we had planned last week. And I will say this, that it's not a bad idea to go over to podcastufo.com and go down on the sidebar, and you'll see a mailing list sign up. All you do is pop your email in there. You click send, and then you'll get a link in your email address to confirm it. And what it is, I just send out, if there's any changes, I will send a notice out for that. But also every Tuesday morning ahead of the show, you'll get the blog link, and you'll also get who the upcoming guest is of that day. And sometimes it changes on the day for different reasons. Maybe a guest had to cancel for some reason, or something else came along. Tonight, Dean Alioto, you saw him briefly last week in last week's show, and he's on this week. We're going to discuss the overall state of ufology in general. It's been a long time since he's been a sole guest on this show. I defer to him for a lot of things. He and I have become friends over the years, and he's a real sharp guy. He's got his finger on the pulse of this. He's got some work coming up that is going to be very well appreciated by everyone in this group. And we're going to talk a little bit about a past situation that he had that is absolutely hilarious. He helped out James Fox with his Phenomenon movie. He's been helped out for A&E Specials, Bravo, Discovery, and he was featured in the Paramount and Documentary Unknown Dimensions. And anyway, without further ado, what is ado anyway? I've never really understood what ado is, but without further ado, here is Dean Alioto. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martin. Glad to be back.
Yeah.
I think a dew is like a honeydew melon.
Is that what it is?
The dew that you're referring to?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for clearing that up. But welcome back to the show. And I think we always have fun together. So, and it was a great visit I had out with you when I was in California a few weeks ago. That was just a blast. And now we're paying for being warm those few weeks, because right now it's like 34 degrees outside where I am right now. I wasn't ready for that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And you poor thing, it's probably down to 70 there, right?
It's getting close. I'm trying to keep it out of sight, out of mind, because if I think about it too much, I might get sad, which is season affected disorder, where I have to be at a perfect balmy 74. Otherwise, I'm just extremely
Well, you're in the right place there. In Southern California.
I won't do podcasts. You can want me in your podcast, and I'm suffering from SADS. Yes.
Yeah. Before we get into like our main topic tonight, we do have a lot of new people that listen to the show all the time. And I don't think a lot of people know about your found footage. And when I said earlier, when I was introducing you, when I said it's hilarious, what happened after you created the video for like on a shoestring budget, that's what became hilarious, and the outcome, the things that happened after that. But I'd like to play a clip first of all for those of you who have never heard of this. It was a found footage, actually probably the original found footage show, right? I mean, this was your concept right out of high school, right?
I've been accused a few times of this. Yes.
Yeah. Move over, Blair Witch. Okay, here we go. Here's the clip. 1 minute clip.
Happy birthday to you. Wait, make a wish. Don't blow yet.
And then you can tell me. Hold on. Oh, it's working. Forget it. Oh, swear to God, you're gonna break your neck with that thing.
I'm gonna break your neck with that thing. Holy shit.
What the hell was that? Holy shit. What the hell is that? He's got him! He shot one of them dead. It's right outside there.
Are you sure it's not back there?
It's not back there. I just took a look in there.
Get out!
Well, there's a little trailer there. So let's talk about how that all started, how that all came together. But I want to talk about also about what happened to the warehouse and the whole thing. You can do it. I know some people, I believe you told us about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago in this show. So there, like I said, there's a lot of new people, and for me, it never gets old.
I think I can do this in 2 or 3 minutes. So if you guys have heard this before, come back in 2 or 3 minutes, and you'll just pick up and we'll get into some really cool shit.
Well, I put a timestamp last week. A lot of people said, "Oh, you got to do that every week." Where you click on the timestamps and it goes. But I'm not going to do that this time, I don't think. But I might do it for you, Dean. Go ahead. I'm timing you. Yeah.
Click. So here's what happened. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker at an early age, and one of the things that all of my filmmaking idols had done is that they had made their first feature by the age of 25. That goes with from Orson Welles to Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Coppola, all these cats. So I decided that I was going to do that, and unfortunately, right out of film school, all I had was a camcorder, and a guy who I went to school with, high school with, who wanted to be a producer and said he would finance my first feature. And so he said, let's do this. And I said, great. How much do you have? And he said, I'm willing to spend $6,500. So back then there was no DSLR camera, stuff like that. It was 35 millimeter or 16 millimeter, which is almost equally expensive with lab costs and everything. And so I decided, because I'd been shooting with my buddy these wedding videos, and I had decided that I was going to, maybe do something with that, but I wasn't sure. And then I had read Communion around that time, and it scared the hell out of me more than any Stephen King novel. And then I remember specifically, and I was just mentioning this to my girlfriend, Allie, we were flying out, and I had a flashback where I remember flying out from San Francisco, and it was that perfect time where you go from, dusk until night, and you can see the curvature of the planet, because the planet, it's actually not flat. And so I was imagining leaving the planet. This would be the last time that I would ever see the planet, looking down out the window. And that kind of started something. And I thought, well, what if I conflated all these things? I did kind of like a War of the Worlds on videotape, and shot this thing in one take, and hired improv actors, and did it all in one night. And so that's exactly what I did. I had a 10-page beat sheet of all these things that were based on what Whitley and Bud Hopkins' books had purported, and just found myself, shooting this thing and finished it. And ironically, the thing actually got distributed. I do remember this one story where this woman, head of a production company, yelled at me when I came in with my little teaser trailer for my film, because she said, "Don't ever waste my time. Don't ever come back here again unless you have a real film." And so that was my second to last meeting that I had with trying to sell this thing. I'm from San Francisco, and I had commuted up to LA just for the purposes of selling this thing. So I thought, well, that was it. My very last meeting, met with this guy, and he says, "I love it. Let's do it." And so that was it. So I checked in a few months later. I'd given him all my artwork, my master, the whole deal. And I said, "Hey, so, how are the pre-orders? How are we doing?" And he goes, "It's went up in flames, man." And I thought, "Oh, we're on fire. We're crushing it." I go, "Well, how many units?" And he said, "All of them." And I said, "We've blown out all the units?" And he said, no, they literally all went up. And then he explained to me that the warehouse burned to the ground, and I lost all my main masters, or my one main master, all of my artwork gone, history. And so, we're kind of depressed, but I thought that the film gods might have been telling me something, and so it was time to move on. And so I did. Flash forward to 5 years later, and I get a call from this guy, Sean David Morton, saying, hey, do you know who found this footage? Your name came up, and that was the first time I'd ever heard found footage, and this would have been, let's see, the early 90s. And I said, what footage are you talking about? He told it, explained to me, and I said, well, no one found that. We made it. And he says, okay, do you know what's been going on with your film? And I'm like, dude, who the hell are you? And he says, I just got back from the International UFO Congress Convention where your film was shown and believed to be the real thing. Tom Dongo, UFO researcher, had gotten his hands on it. And then UFO researcher, Lieutenant Colonel retired Don Ware, the Air Force intelligence, claimed it was authentic, and that pretty much nailed its infamy right then and there. And so I was amused by it. I didn't understand what any of that meant. All I knew is that Sean was saying Unsolved Mysteries, hard copy, and this Fox show called Encounters all want to interview me and do a story on the segment. And I said to him, well, Unsolved Mysteries, I guess that's out. And he says, what do you mean? I said, well, it's called Unsolved. It's not called Solved Mysteries. And he says, well, not necessarily. And I said, no, Sean, who's going to give us most airtime? And he, Fox turned out they were going to give us 6.5 minutes and let us do a little bumper. And so went on that show, and then they interviewed a couple other people. And what we kind of figured out was that someone much more clever than I am and more devious than I am edited off the credits because a few mom and pop video stores got advanced screeners and cut off the credits and injected to the UFO community, which took about 5 years to fully implode or explode and become this strange, kind of conspiracy phenomenon. And so I went out on national TV and debunked my own film. I think I'm the first and only filmmaker so far to debunk their own film. But I have enough respect for UFO researchers that I don't want any more, stuff on their plate that they don't need. So, that was it. I thought, well, there's my 15 minutes of fame, time to move on. And then I meet this head writer. We're working on the Stephen J. Cannell crime series. And he says, I heard about this thing. I want to see it. And I said, no, it's crappy. It's handheld. It's this thing that's meant to look like a home video, because no one had done that at this time still. It was years away from Blair Witch. And so there's no reference for it. And so he said, shut up and show it to me. And he got a movie deal set up at Dick Clark Productions. So we did a remake of it, essentially. And now the budget was $1.25 million. We were shooting up in Canada with the guys from the X-Files and to do the ship and aliens. And so now we had a week instead of 1 day, and we came in $500,000 under budget, and came back, and that was it. And I thought, well, that was fun. That extended that 15 minutes to maybe 17 minutes. And then I got fired because everyone at UPN got fired, which means that any project that's there, they get kicked to the curb. So they go out and they put in more interviews, except they put in, I had fake interviews that were intercut throughout the footage. They brought in Stan Friedman, Daryl Sims, my good friend Yvonne Smith, and then cut it in with the footage so it looked like they were conjecturing about the actual show, which wasn't cool. I do remember Stan Friedman on Coast to Coast, and all these people were infuriated, and they were calling in and saying, "You need to sue them." And I was going, "Yes, please sue them." And so anyway, that was it. And I thought, well, there you go. I'm done. I finished out my time in this space, and I've enjoyed it. And that was it. And by the way, the first online poll was done, which was asking if this is real or not. And that was after the credits said, Alien 1 and 2 and 3 played by so-and-so. And I shit you not, 49% of the audience claimed it was authentic after seeing all that. So that kind of, taught me something, the power of, showing. And then over the years, I thought, again, that was it. Then over the years, all these conspiracies started to build. And one of them was that, and the original name of that remake for UPN was the McPherson Tape, which for some reason was ascribed now onto the original, which was called UFO Abduction, the one I had done in '89. But anyway, it was rebranded as Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. And so the internet came and started firing off all these conspiracies that I was hired by the government to remake it, to throw people off the scent of the original one, because that's apparently what happens. They hire filmmakers to throw people off the scent. They should have done that with JFK. I guess.
Yeah, with a $1.5 million budget, that's pretty good. Yeah,
that's pretty good. I got a very small percentage of that, so I need to talk to my agent about that in the future if I'm going to engage in any conspiracy activities. So anyway, I thought that was it, and then lo and behold, 2018, 17 rolls around, and Alejandro and I connect, Rojas, and he says, "Hey, Karen, who runs the International UFO Congress Convention, BRARD, they want to do a special anniversary screening of the film. They want me to come out and speak." And so I did that, and then I went to Fantastic Fest. They also want to do this re-release of the film, which is Alamo Drafthouse, and so that happened. And then it just kept snowballing, and while I was in this, going to these UFO conventions and stuff, I started meeting people that, the spectrum of people. You meet someone who tells you at the fire pit at the what's the name of the hotel at the International UFO Congress Convention? It used to be at it's the name, I forgot the name, something resort that we were staying at in Phoenix. These guys were sitting around
WeCoPA. I was just there.
Yeah.
The WeCoPA conference center.
Yes. Yeah. So the first night I got there was this guy who was sitting there slamming some bud and telling me that he was born with Vulcan ears and his damn parents had rounded them out and he was pissed off. And so it went from that to going to a support group with Yvonne Smith saying, "Hey, I've got the support group with experiencers." And I thought, I told my girlfriend, Allie, I said, "Well, this will be the true tale of the tape. We'll see what we get here, but I'm expecting it to be a little bit, the full spectrum of, from credible to maybe not so credible." And so I came home and she says, "Well, how was that?" And I said, "Horrifying." I believed every single one of them. And I've worked for 20 years on crime shows and not a blip on my bullshit meter went off. And that and a few other, incidences, meeting people and stuff got me thinking that there was something in the space that I had not seen before in either a movie or a series. And so that, unfortunately, was the gateway drug that got me into this nearly 4-year odyssey of creating a science documentary, not a UFO and alien documentary, but a science documentary about UFOs and aliens, which I've just wrapped as of last week. And it's a 3-parter. I've got great people from, Harvard, Oxford, people who, like, I've got Michio Kaku. I've got the guy who created the simulated reality hypothesis, who's there. I've got a singularity expert and best-selling author Daniel Wilson, among other people like Travis Walton and some regulars. But there's new information and stuff. So if I brought someone in who we've seen before, I made sure that we got some new information that we hadn't got before. Because for me, ultimately, I thought, even though I've been tracking this since I was a kid, the phenomenon, I wanted to make something that was somewhere between the Dummy's Guide to UFO and Aliens and the New England Journal of Medicine, so that there would be a nice introduction into this world, but I wouldn't leave the people who follow this, the hardcore, people like us, in the dust, that there would be something new, a mic drop in every episode. And so I'm happy to say that we were able to accomplish that, and you're going to see some really cool stuff that you've not seen before. And so that's kind of my journey up until this moment. And Martin was the first person that, I think, one of the first podcasts that I did when I came out of the closet, if you will, in 2017, 18.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where we met. We met there that year. and kind of been in touch ever since. And it's been a lot of fun. But you've had people also that will try to debunk your debunking that that's not found footage, which I think is really hilarious. Like they knew the people in the film and those, it's a real family, and
yeah,
I think is, I mean, that kind of shows you how strong someone's belief can be in something, really.
Well, I would get hate mail or email, and my favorite of all time was this guy saying, I see right through you. How do you explain my mother's best friends being best friends with the woman who knew the woman who was abducted, who was the mother in my thing? And I said, you got me. I can't explain how your mother is good friends with a woman who's friends of a fictional character. I can't help you there. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. But anyway, I've seen, I do remember you speaking about that. And then I've seen you all of a sudden taking this thing very seriously and really doing a deep dive in the last several years. And you're in the background, watching my show a lot of times and watching many others, and you really have taken a keen interest. And so you happen to come along at a time where it's much more this subject's taken much more seriously than it has been the entire time that I've been doing it, and for the years ahead of that. So your timing was really good. And when you're interviewing all these people, how many people in total do you have in this 3-part docuseries?
I interviewed 53 people. It was supposed to be 12 people, and I was going to be done in 6 to 9 months. When I consulted with James Fox on the phenomenon briefly, I said to him, this is 8 years, 9 years you're at this. That's not sustainable. You know that, right? And he goes, yeah, I know. And here I am 4 years into it. And so it does grab a hold of you. What happens is this. It's, you interview someone and they go, okay, the questions that you're asking me, I can only partially answer those because they're out of my purview, but you should talk to this person. And then that person leads to someone else. And pretty soon, this web starts to build out, and, years go by and dozens of interviews, go, and at some point you have to cut yourself off. And so my last interview was, I had 2 interviews. One of them is a special guest who I can't say who it is, who is one of the last interviews in episode 3. But Greg Bishop was the second to last one. And he offered a couple of really funny, terrific lines. But yeah, it really, it just became this whole thing. I mean, it started as a feature film that became this 3-parter. So that gives you kind of an idea. And out of the 53, only 3 of those didn't make it into this. The other ones will probably end up being in, I want to do a really good behind the scenes or special feature bonus stuff that is, things that you also haven't seen before. So,
well, I've been in touch a little bit here and there with James Fox lately, and he is in the middle of something. He's not really giving me any details, but he's working like crazy right now on something. So you may know more about that than I do. I don't know what is common knowledge and what is not, but he's got something going on when it comes to the UFO. Once again,
what I can tell you, what I can share with you about his new documentary is absolutely nothing. The way that
I can,
yeah, just like I wouldn't want anyone sharing anything about my stuff until it's time. But I do know that if anyone's going to unearth something that's going to, be a nice check on the Richter scale, it'll be James. So I'm with everyone else. I'm very excited to see what he's going to be coming up with. I know that he's very enthused, and so it'll be worth it, whatever it is.
Right. And where do you expect, or do you have not sold this thing yet? We have no idea when we can watch it and where we can watch it. But can you direct people to your website or some way where they can figure out how these things are going to be released?
How this usually works is especially these films that are made independently, like Jeremy Corbell and Fox and other filmmakers that are out there. We make these things independently, and then we pull together with our sales team, and then we go out and we see what the temperature is out, who's interested, et cetera, and hit that. So until then, I'm not going to be showing a trailer. We have a trailer that an editor from Netflix cut. Not that it's going to be at Netflix. There's no guarantees of where we're going to be at this point. We'll probably close a deal, if not by the end of the year, first thing, come the new year. And so then I can talk more freely about, when it'll be targeted, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, right now, there's there'll be more occasionally.
Well,
I mean, if you go to if you go to Instagram, Dean Alioto, occasionally I post things, behind the scenes things of what's going on there. My name, Dean Alioto, or Dean_Alioto, I think it might be, or my Dean Alioto page on Facebook. Fan page.
Well, you'll definitely be back on to promote it once it's out. So we'll get the word out there for sure and put it up on the website as well. So I wouldn't worry about that. Now, I do want to say that, and I know you know as much as I do about this too, but since we're talking about films when they're coming out, I know that I get at least 2 or 3 emails a week, and I'll get probably several after this if I don't address it. And that is, I have no idea when the Ariel phenomenon is coming out. I've heard rumors that it was going to be before the end of this year. It was going to be on a major streaming platform. I have no other information, can't find out any information, just to let everyone know. So I apologize. I thought I should hear something back at this point, but I still have no information on that. It's kind of a mystery.
Your guess is going to be as good as mine. I'm sure I just know as much as you, which is that they've made a deal, I believe, with a distributor, if that's all been signed and dotted. And so if I had to venture a guess, I would say it would be coming out sometime next year, hopefully early next year. But only Randy Nickerson will have the answer to that. But it's an important documentary, and I like seeing this shift from the nuts and bolts craft to the experiencers, who, for me, these are the emissaries of the phenomena. You want to talk about disclosure. These are the people who are having disclosure on a personal, one-by-one basis. It's probably a lot safer than landing on the White House lawn and, getting shot at and then asking them questions later on. Oh, we didn't know. Sorry. So I think these are the people, that are the closest links that we have. And so I really want to see them have their seat at the table. I think that's kind of critical to go beyond just the kind of viewing these things. There's other things that are happening, and there's enough cases out there to substantiate this as strong as, a photograph, I would say, especially in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, people ask me what I think is the most important case. I have to put this one at the top, and, there may be a few that are close second, but I think the Ariel incident is, to me, the most convincing of all of them out there, that something really strange. And I know there's more evidence, so to speak, when it comes to like the Nimitz case and other cases where there's all kinds of other, backed up data. And there's no data. There's just, many school children that saw this thing and right away drew pictures of it and carried this thing all through their lives, all these children.
I've interviewed 2 of the students.
Yeah.
And one of them drops a big,
or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed 2 of them. One of them does a big mic drop. So that's all I can say about that. Can you tell that I enjoy teasing? Can you? Just a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Always. Yeah.
And so, if you were to say, let me create a perfect scenario for a UFO case, what would that be? Well, it would be broad daylight, because I don't want to hear any talk about sleep paralysis. It would be several witnesses, and it would be, experienced by people who are not not going to be subjected to having ideas that are going to, filter or going to shade their opinion. They would just be raw. This is what I saw, and that would be children. And so I don't think it's an accident that it happened at a schoolyard. And as Preston will tell you, that there's been tons of schoolyard encounters. This happens in Zimbabwe. It happens in a school that I sound like I'm promoting Randy's movie, but maybe I'm promoting both of ours. It's a progressive school where there's Black, white, Christian, Muslim, Catholics across the board out in the country. And it's witnessed by not 62, as was originally reported. It's witnessed by much more. And as Fox revealed, it was witnessed by one of the teachers as well, who was too afraid and even terrified to say anything. But that's, there it is. It's right there. And they're all saying essentially the same exact thing, drawing the same pictures. And they're getting, more important, they're getting the images of what, not all of them, but the ones that were up close, mostly receive these telepathic images. So this to me is a watershed moment. It's 1994. This is before the internet and everything, where these kids would have known about that. And I doubt they had even seen ET, at the moment, let alone Close Encounters and stuff like that, where you see the typical, grazes they described. So,
a lot of them didn't even have TVs. They didn't even have television.
No, and they were worried about getting in trouble for seeing this thing.
Yeah.
Because they thought their parents were going to give them grief and stuff.
And some of the parents did. Some of the parents thought it was demonic.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is, that's another good reason for them not just to show up and start doing, Tucker Carlson and other shows on both sides, because, someone's going to come out and throw down on the demon card and say, yeah, they're here. They're going to eat our souls. Start with their brains and then work their way to our souls. So, And to be honest, I think the best way for anyone who's approaching this or interested in this, or even has been at this a long time, we have to kind of constantly remind ourselves, what would we do? Not that we're an indicator of what would happen, but would we, the prime directive, Star Trek, are we going to show up and we're going to throw ourselves a party, come with a boombox blaring and going, yo guys, what's up? We're just a few light years over. Heard you guys were, got some cool bands. No, we're going to study them like entomologists. And as I said on your show, I get really pissed off when I hear talk of that, what would they want with us? We're so primitive. They could, they could care less. And, as I said before, this isn't an intelligence beauty contest. All life is of interest. One life form is not less valuable than another. So I think that all of that has to be considered. And if that's the case, and if we were in that situation where we were so advanced and we had survived the pettiness that we have a lot on this earth, what would we do? And it would be to check out other civilizations and see where they're going. The question is, do they nudge us? Do they give a little, you might want to not press that red button, So it's kind of, there's a lot of answers by looking within and, which is kind of tough because you can't look at it from the human perspective.
Right.
Because that's just projecting. Right.
Yeah.
But you can look at it.
But you just did. You just said, we'd study them like we were studying ants.
Yeah, but you know why? Yeah, because there's one thing that I think all intelligent life has across the board, and we see it here from ants to humans, which is curiosity.
I knew you were going to say that.
You did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if they didn't have curiosity, you're right. They wouldn't even be exploring whatever they're exploring, whether it's space or another dimension or whatever it is, wherever they come from. The only reason they'd be here is, you're right, curiosity. I would think it wouldn't be by accident.
No, but they want to be seen. They do. Sometimes they've got, lights flashing. What's that all about? You don't need that. It's kind of like, as Greg Bishop would say, it's kind of this weird, kabuki, and probably Graham will echo that as well. It's this weird kabuki where they just come and want to be seen, and the people who see it are greatly affected. I've got a documentary filmmaker friend of mine who called me last year and said, hey, I need to talk to you. I understand that you're kind of into UFOs. And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, I saw something at 4 a.m. on my balcony. And I don't believe in UFOs. Let me just say that right off the bat. I think that whole thing is, BS, and we're it. And I go, okay, well, you're entitled to that. And he said, but this has got me shaken up. He said, I saw this silver craft going along silently, and maybe it was 25 feet long, and it was moving along, had this kind of blue light or flame in the back of it, and it was moving along silently. And he said, just the appearance of it, he had a sense, this kind of connection. I'm not from here. Like he felt that. And then the light flashed and it was gone. He says it wasn't like you could see it take off. It was just like gone, like it, phased out. And so he was calling me, freaked out, and like needed to be talked off off the limb. And so I directed him to Earl Grey, MUFON, LA director, which might have been a bad thing, because who knows what Earl's going to do. That guy's crazy. No. So he, is going to kind of let him know, hey, you're one of many. You don't have to be a believer to witness things. My mother's seen one. My ex saw one. I've not seen one. That's not cool. But, that's why I think, because I haven't seen one, that's why, when I say that I've seen something, or if someone has given me some evidence, I always say, I'm not an easy first date. You're not going to get far with me on the first date. I have to be convinced. I have to be proven. I have to feel like it's genuine, it's authentic, it's real love, and this is a real reality. And then when it is, I can give myself. But until then, I'm going to have that wall. You're going to get the handshake at the end of the night from me, until I believe that we have something legit.
I got to tell you, you just brought up about the lights here, and I had a science teacher the last time we brought this up. I asked him if he'd come on the show and give his opinion, maybe just for a clip or something. But when it comes up about why do UFOs a lot of them seem to have lights, he came up, he wrote me this here: we as humans in the 21st century believe that the use of artificial light is limited to the following. Well, it's kind of long for me to go into. He goes into photography, vitamin D, maintenance and temperature, drying and evaporating, sterilization, solar energy. And then he goes on to what he thinks the possibility of UFOs, why they have lights, maybe sensors for various applications, the source of propulsion or an element that is needed for propulsion, the visual byproduct of photons required to cloaking apparatus. Again, the byproduct of the use of photons stimulate the Earth's magnetic field in order to open a gateway to a different dimension. He has all these things, simply navigation lights to one other crafts in their location. Clearly, these things are solid objects and they can be susceptible to collisions. The byproduct of the process to convert dark matter or dark energy into something else, like fuel, food, water, oxygen, things like that. So anyway, it's pretty interesting. This science teacher wrote me from Canada, and
are one of those things a sun lamp?
That's right.
We should go out there with our photo albums. We put, remember, aluminum foil over that. You get the whole even.
Oh yeah,
got to get underneath there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we don't know, and all we can do is throw out our best guess. But I kind of look at this from, what could be, that first of all, how they appear and disappear. If you can cloak yourself, why do you appear? And then you could tell me, well, it's because they can't sustain that the whole time and they need to refuel or whatever. But there's more than enough accounts. And even with Fravors, Commander Fravor says this thing became aware of me and it turned its head like a dog going, turned and looked and came at him, like the whole craft had awareness, which,
Yeah.
all these things, it might be weird and outside the realm, but that's where the clues are. It's not in a clean, shiny, frisbee looking craft that comes and lands and they get out and everything. It's the stuff before and after that you see, or the things that just seem so bizarre. For the longest time, and this has happened many a time where I feel like I have it. I think I've got it figured out. I think I've got a clue here. I've got a thread, and I tug and the whole thing comes apart. And that's happened many a time. One of the times was when I kept hearing about deceased relatives who were on these crafts. And I thought, well, if they're traveling the astral plane, which, my background was much more in spirituality, Tibetanism and Buddhism. And so taking those things from reincarnation and everything and looking at, when you die, you do carry on. I believe that all matter, has energy, and energy can't be destroyed. And I thought if they're phasing or they're traveling in the astral plane, you might see that. So if you are say materialized into their channel, their dimension, and you're in the astral plane, you might see stuff like that. So it won't be so weird. And so someone may argue, well, they're tricksters and they're trying to make you feel at home. It's like, well, if they're doing that, then as Travis Walton says, why don't they all just look like us? That'll make us feel much better. You could pick the celebrity. If you want George Clooney to abduct you, they'd look like George Clooney or whatever. I might not do George Clooney myself, but the point is that that maybe Evel Knievel, that would be great to see him. I miss him. So that is its own weirdness, and that is its own clue. So you have to put that up on the board, and it's not always neat, but there's something there that they're able to do that. And so when people are transferred through walls and windows, that means they're changing the composition, the physical composition of these people, and doing this, and the crafts, the way that they're moving and stuff, and you can almost see through them. These are all little clues. So not to skip ahead to the punchline or the finish line, but lastly, the thing that's interesting is when it's time for us to discover these things and understand it, we have an agreement with them or with their reality. And they have to agree. They have to come halfway on the bridge and say, all right, we'll meet you halfway. Here's what we are, and this is what we can do, etc. And so there's a reason why, we don't have those nuts and bolts pictures right now. Maybe the military does, but I think there's a reason why we don't have the proof that everyone, from Neil deGrasse Tyson to even Seth Sostak goes, all right, this is it. So my question is, how come we don't have that? How come we don't have that smoking gun? Why don't we have that now? And is it a bad thing that we don't?
And what would the smoking gun look like exactly? That's because whatever we think we have for data right now isn't enough to convince a large enough body of people. And what would it take to convince a large enough body of people that, we're not alone? But I don't know, let's just say it's what we're seeing, and I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know, but let's just say they're extraterrestrial. That's what we're seeing. That's one of the biggest theories, I think, or biggest possibilities to at least some of these things that show up. What would be, a structured craft on the ground with beings that would be able to be explored, by scientists? Is that what it would be? It's hard.
Well, one could argue that's already been done because scientists have had their own experiences, right? And if you want someone credible, you've got, Lonnie Zamora, you've got Commander Fravor. So these people have seen these things. They haven't gone up and kicked the tires. Jim Peniston did. Yeah. Rendlesham, he went and did it. So it's like, if someone were to say to me before Rendlesham, I want someone in the military who's gone up and touched one of these things and had their own experience. Show me that. And then, give me someone credible, then I'll go there. Well, that happened. So every time we move the ball down the field, it seems like the goalpost gets slid further and further back. So all we can do is look at what we do have now and say, okay, so what is the next step? And the next step is, okay, there's two, in my head, I carry these two things. One is you have to have your own personal experience. Once you've done that, then that reality has crossed over, right? Then it's become a part of their reality. And even then, there's going to be some questions that'll come and linger in waves, right? But at least you can go, will this happen? And you need to have a witness. I think that's imperative. And the second thing is, what would it be, you know, personally for me? Because it's going to be personal to everyone. And so experiencers, their evidence to me that is just as profound as any religious, you know, claims of seeing angels or God, Jesus, etc., is that these people suffer from, you know, experiencers suffer from PTSD. You can't fake PTSD that I'm aware of. And so, you know, if that's the case, then these people are suffering. And again, I'm going to hit this note kind of hard. And in my doc, I do touch on this, you know, making fun of people or not believing someone who has symptoms of you know, of what they've had, and whether it's good or bad, there always is trauma attached to it. It's like saying to someone, oh, you were accosted and you were molested. Really? Was the van white, or was it silver, or was it black? You know, was it rope, or was it, you know, it's making fun of that. And you would never do that to someone in that situation. So why would you do that with someone who has, you know, claims of this? Whether you believe it or not, they believe it is what's important. So you have to hold in one hand, it's a personal thing. The second is, let's walk through the scenario of what it would be like in our best case scenario. Best case scenario is maybe they don't land in the White House, they land at a fair or something where people aren't prepared and they don't have weapons nearby. Though if it's in Texas, that might not be the case. But say a fair, you know, somewhere in maybe Seattle, we'll just say, they would land there, a bunch of people, everyone's got their cell phones and stuff. And if they're not doing this, if they look up and see this, they videotape this, they have it, there's encounters, all that stuff. I think that would be from different angles, because it's all about triangulating, you know, which is what Mark D'Antonio is working on with his thing with Doug Trumbull, and a few others have the same type of program where they're looking at, you know, getting all these different angles. So we would have that. And then we have this, okay? So this is gold. So we have it, we take it back and we put it online and everyone sees it and it gets millions of hits. And everyone's like, wow, this is it. And then the debunkers, you know, come in, and then it comes and it's news, and then it goes. And did it change anything? They came, they did this. Well, the military, when they came out in 2017, the Navy, and said, yes, these things have been occurring, this is it. It's already been legitimized. So it's now just seeing the occupants, whoever is flying these things. So now they're not unmanned drones. Now there's something. Now you see that. So again, what is the ultimate end game? And I always ask UFO researchers this, and fans of this field, this unique field. I go, what is the ultimate goal, guys? What do we want? And if it's that we want to have confirmation that there's life elsewhere, well, I think the odds are that we know that that's the case. Do we want confirmation that they're humanoids? Well, that's uncertain, which is why I kind of lean a little bit, or equally, into Michael Masters, who says that they could be from the future. Because, you know, if this hybrid program, as an example, if that's real, they're not going to be able to breed with another species. I mean, they might have technology, but it would be much easier, let's say, if they're from the future. And the way that Michael has mapped out where we've come and where we're going, we're ending up looking like them. I mean, it sounds like that's pretty irrefutable at this point. So if they're coming back in time and they're breeding with us because there's too much, you know, inbreeding going on, and I guess they've got banjos in the future, I don't know. Then
I don't know how many will get that reference, but maybe a few. Yeah,
that's okay. It's just for the few. So I think that that's you know, something that again, it's you know, the humanoid thing. That's, I think life has already been visiting us in so many different forms. We haven't a clue. We have not a clue. There's no way they're not. you know, and they're not all going to look like us. And you know, when I was interviewing Michael for my doc, and I said, Masters, and I said, how come no one talks about reptilian hybrids, little reptilian children, or mantis? So maybe there's something to what he's saying, which is that, you know, they look like us, or the humanoids are humanoids because maybe they, you know, are us. And what does that mean? Because at some point we're going to figure out time travel, and that whole thing where you can only go back to the moment you created it. We don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that I like to throw out to every single scientist that loves to throw down and says, look, here are the laws and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, every law that I know has been broken. So.
Well, I recently was in Arizona speaking with Mark D'Antonio. We had several nights where we were hanging out together and we talked a lot. He's got a real interesting theory about extinction events and, you know, how things may have been so much different. And one of them is the dinosaurs, because, you know, dinosaurs, some of them were around like 300 million years. And one of them in particular, the brain, they could see the brain was getting larger. And so if that extinction event did not happen where they were wiped out, you know, would we be having reptilians, you know, that were intelligent and learn how to, you know, build things and actually, you know, do things in the future? I mean, it's pretty fascinating. And that's when the mammals, you know, the mammals took over after that extinction event. But if that hadn't happened, we'd certainly be very different than we are today.
Right. But then the big question is, why did that extinction event happen? Why was it their time?
Yeah.
Why was it their time to
go? For so long, you know, and yeah. We have, we're going into a break here in like 2 minutes, just to let you know. And actually the clip I'm going to talk about is a girl named Denise. She was at the boot camp out in Arizona. And I am down to just a couple of clips every week. I'd like to run a clip that is a UFO sighting. So I just saw someone, David, in chat just a little while ago, said he had a very unique UFO sighting. I am recording with these people. This one in particular was at the boot camp, so it's a little bit loud for background noise. But for those of you who have had a unique UFO sighting, I'd like to talk to you, see if it would be something we can make a clip with and have these, because I'm getting a lot of people saying they're really enjoying these UFO incidents, you know, on the clips in between the show. So I think we can roll right into that. Hopefully Bill will be ready over there. And when we come back, I'd like to talk about more of where you think the UFO community is headed, and with the information we have, you know, from the government, how they're taking this more seriously, the path forward, et cetera, et cetera. We'll make it up as we go, like we usually do, Dean. All right.
Perfect.
All right. So hang in there, everyone, over at KGRA Radio. We'll be right back. It's about a 5-minute break. And here is Denise. She had a cigar-shaped UFO sighting back in 1973. Here we go. So Denise, it's been nice meeting you here at the boot camp, the MUFON boot camp. But I want to hear about your UFO sighting you had in 1973?
In 1973, yes. I was 14 years old, and this occurred in upstate New York, in a town called Greece. And it occurred at the end of the summer, towards the beginning of the school year, probably the end of August, beginning of September. And I was riding my bicycle with my girlfriend from my house to her house. And it was twilight, or approaching twilight. And as we came up to a path that cut through the back of the high school and through the football field, I felt compelled to look to my right. And to my right, there were a bank of trees, and I saw a very large craft rise from behind the trees, and almost right about tree top level. It was quiet. There was like no perturbation of the air or anything. It was just like silent, and it came over the trees and started moving in our direction. And she and I got off our bikes and leaned them up against the bleachers, and the craft came towards us, and very, very close. I can't tell you how many feet, but it was just a little bit above the bleachers. And I can describe the craft to you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
There were some symbols on the bottom of it. The central part of the body was like cigar shaped, and there were 3 appendages coming out from one side and then from the other, and they ran parallel to each other, and there were lights at the end of each of those appendages.
Wow.
The craft was very large as the football field, if maybe not even bigger. And so there were these symbols on the bottom that looked like they kind of looked like hieroglyphics or maybe Russian letters. But I was 14, so my interpretation of what I was seeing was limited based on that, because I don't really have any true recollection of what they look like now. I just remember what my impression was then. So the next thing I know, she and I were standing there, and next thing I know, it's dark. Not too much later, couldn't have been too much later because we both had a curfew.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you remember seeing it leave and then, or was it just all of a sudden it was dark?
Well, it was dark and the craft was still there. And we were standing there looking up at it. And from our vantage point, we could see these windows, look like windows, square shaped, and there was like an amber glow to them coming from the inside, and I could see silhouettes of occupants.
Did they look humanoid in a way, would you say, or larger heads? I mean, I don't want to lead you by saying the larger heads things, but did they look like normal size heads and humanoid?
It's very hard for me to tell.
Yeah, at this point.
At this point.
That was a long time ago.
Right. I can just tell you what my impressions were at the moment.
Yeah.
And there were no details. It was just a black silhouette. And there was movement. You could tell that they were moving. And then, then the ship silently just drifted towards our left. I don't know what direction that was. And she and I got on our bikes and we rode to her house. And when we got to her neighborhood, there were a lot of people standing on their driveways looking at the lights and talking about it. She and I never spoke of it again.
Really?
And
I've heard that so many times.
I ran into her about, I don't know, a few years ago at the gym and asked her about it, and she refused to discuss it.
Did she seem scared?
The shades went down. She was like, I don't want to talk about that.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much. That was very interesting.
Stand by, Martin. Coming back in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. My guest looks like he's away from his desk. I don't know if he had his timer on, but we have Dean Alioto. I'm looking at an empty chair. He shall be back. But again, here he is. I am looking for people that had a UFO sighting like Denise and would like to talk about it. And also, I had a woman named Deb on, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago that talked about her schoolyard sighting. At some point, I'm going to release her original video, and I'll let people know when I do that. I had her on as a guest kind of at the last minute, but I do have an original video the first time she told the story. Very interesting story. And welcome back, Dean.
Sorry, I had to call Denise and open up my documentary and put in this new interview. This is how it happens. Every time I think I'm done, they pull you back.
Yeah, that was a strange encounter. And I don't know if you caught this, but she said on the 3 appendages on each side, they had lights at the end of them. Here we are, lights again.
Back with lights. It's interesting because you were asking her, and that would be very hard to hold up in a court because you were leading the witness, sir. She was reticent to say what it is. And usually when people really want to, come out and grandstand about something and make more of something that maybe is, what it was, or even if it existed, they don't do that. She was, very shy about doing that. I always look, towards that if it's someone who's, freely throwing down and gets into it and can be led. She was not. She just told you, these are the facts. This is what I remember. And, again, it's this personal thing that she's held on to.
Right. And, it is, she was a person that I sort of had to talk into telling her story. She had told her story to my friend Donna that was out there with me. And she was reluctant to talk about it. So, she had told Donna, but had not told me at that point. I mean, she was not real excited about telling the story. And again, that's another thing, that makes you wonder about, there's so many of these stories. I don't know if this has happened to you, but when you're out and about and you may have a conversation with someone in public, does it ever come up? Do you say, well, I'm actually doing a film, a series on UFOs. Do you ever say that in public and then people will say to you, oh, well, you should hear what happened to my uncle or something like that? Does that happen to you?
All the time. I'll say, can I have my bacon on the side? Have you ever seen a UFO? No? Oh, okay. Just to check. I'm, if it seems like it makes sense. I shot at this location a couple weeks ago, and this guy that I was filming at had a UFO coffee table book. And I said, oh, you're into UFOs, huh? And he goes, yeah, why? And he looked at me like, what do you know about UFOs? It's kind of like, well, I know the secret handshake. You ready for this? And so he was telling me about his, what he had known. He shared the story with me that I'm hoping to get more information on. But it's, they're out there, and it doesn't take, much. I mean, if you look at the odds of, what the Gallup polls were and everything of how many people have seen things, it's a lot. You're on a plane. Imagine you get on a plane and there's a certain percentage of people that have seen something. That's nuts. Right there. That's nuts. And it's kind of like this weird taboo thing. Like, you can't talk about, you can't talk about, I'm just going to say it's sex. Like, you can't openly talk about it, but there are people that are doing that. And so, it's like, it's something that's a part of it. It's almost like a part of society where it's like, this is an aspect of experience that comes with being a human. And this isn't the only generation that has experienced that. So again, when are we going to get to a place where we stop doing that? It's and I'm not going to get into the whole thing about the government saying, let's discredit these people. Let's, ridicule them to the point that no one wants to come out because we were getting too many calls and we're tying up the government's lines during that point. Not that that isn't true, but certainly that was, 70 years ago. It's a different, case now. And so.
Yeah, the 1953 Robertson panel was basically just that. For those of you that are new, you can Google that and check that out. But it's and I don't know if you ever caught this clip with it was about John Mack when he was having all that trouble with Harvard, and I think it was some known figure. I can't think of who it was. A law professor there at Harvard that says, sure, well, we can all talk about, about angels and, that's okay to believe in angels.
Dr. Relman.
But you certainly can't believe about aliens,
Yeah.
So, which I think is a good point.
Yeah. And there's more evidence to support aliens than there are angels. How many times have angels left, I guess, stigmata, as you could say that, but have left marks, little scoop marks and stuff, not many that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
You know, and then what is an angel? I mean, as Dinah Pasulka has done in her research, was it Sister Avalon, St. Mary of Avalon, who said that she had this experience. She thinks it's an angel, doesn't look like one, and ended up probing her with this wand. What angels probe? That's,
well,
maybe they're out there, rogue aliens.
Yeah. Well, we can do a survey on that if you'd like.
Sure.
What angels probe. But anyway,
yeah.
No, that's interesting because, I mean, you go back throughout time and the lore, there was always something, and is it all fictional, whether it's the elves or
leprechauns
or, but, who knows what it is exactly that people claim to have seen all the way back then. And then there's the Bigfoot aspect. There's all ghosts. There's all, I don't really want to lump UFOs in to what I consider the paranormal realm, because there's so much, evidence out there that these things are happening. The question, I remember Sam Moranto used to get really upset when he was asked, "Oh, so you believe in UFOs?" He said, "There's nothing to believe in. They're here. The evidence is all around us." So yeah.
I'm again. It's kind of like again, you're tugging at the thread of where our beliefs are at this time, and you test the metal of them. As much as I don't want to conflate Bigfoot in with all this stuff, and just want to believe that it's probably just a bear on its hind legs, which they do that all the time. There's too much weirdness around that. My rabbit hole that I'm working in is the UFO alien one, which includes the Bermuda Triangle and everything else. But where I'm looking down, I'm focusing on that. I haven't broadened it into that yet. So, I think there's an argument that if you're going to get into paranormal, you have to throw in, something that appears and disappears in your room at will. I think that kind of falls under what is normal. And again, it depends what your definition of normal is. If your definition is, oh, that's normal, seeing spirits, then that's normal. I mean, geez, if you go to Louisiana and you want to sell your home, you better have a history of spirits in there, because that helps increase the value, from what I hear from my Louisiana buddies. Yeah. Wow. They love that stuff. So, but can you imagine saying that, oh yeah, we've been abducted several times in this house. That back room there, yeah, used to come get my kids, go right through that. Oh, that's great. Okay, here's another 100,000. It doesn't work that way with that. Ghosts are more acceptable. They seem to be more divine than, ones that come in and do their thing, turn off your spouse and everything.
I have a friend that does real estate, and I was doing an auction at a home, took all the antiques out of it, and the family came in from out of town, and they were looking for a real estate agent. So I hooked them up with my friend. He sold their property. He called me, I don't know, maybe 6 months later, and he said, "Did you know that house was haunted?" And I said, "No. What happened?" And I was dealing with a woman.
They built it on the gravestones.
Yeah, she was in her 90s, and a wonderful woman. And there was some friction in the family, and she wanted her family to have all the pieces to save that were family pieces for generations. And they came in and they told me, sell everything. I said, well, your grandmother really wanted these to stay in the family. They said, sell it all. I don't know. I'm not going to say that's the reason that things were happening, but the people that bought the house said all the furniture kept rearranging in the attic. They could hear it scraping on the floor, and they'd run up and it would be in different places. But in the state of, I know we're way off the track of UFOs, but in the state of New Hampshire, if the real estate agent knows something ahead of time that there's things going on in the house, he's supposed to put it in the contract. Disclosure, yes.
That's called disclosure. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know how that's in other states, but that's pretty strange about the spirit in Louisiana, wherever you said. Interesting. But
Yeah.
so you were at the conference, I want to say, was it 2018? So
18 and then again in 19.
Yeah, so this is post the 2017 article that came out December 16th, I believe.
Yeah, I got there in March, the end of March of that following year. So literally within months of that announcement coming out. I had planned to come out before that happened. And so it was still, you know, the scuttlebutt when I came and did your podcast.
Yeah.
We had Stanton Friedman sitting directly across from me. And then we had, we had Stephen Bassett.
Oh, you're talking about
Nick
the whole
Pope.
group. We did the round robin. Yeah, that was
the round robin. And so we were all, you know, talking about that. And I think To the Stars Academy had just been kind of announced. I think that was the other big news thing that was going down.
So you actually came back into this to look at it seriously on a different level than we've seen for years. You know, because it was just taboo, more or less. And so my question to you, have you seen a change since you started digging back into this? Have you seen a change in the state of ufology overall?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's always going to be changing with any field, right? Even if it's, you know, hunting meteorites. For me, it was something that I'd been kind of, you know, adjacent to the phenomenon. I would dip in and dip out. You know, I'd always listen to Coast to Coast and Art Bell and stuff like that, and George Knapp, et cetera. And so I kind of got to a place where, because I had made this movie, which I didn't think was very good. In fact, I remember going to the screening that we had, the two screens, especially the one that was at Fantastic Fest, and it was a sold out audience. And I said to my girlfriend, Allie, I said, get us a seat on the aisle, because this could go bad, because I hadn't seen it in so many years. And then I watched it and realized that it wasn't just kind of fun and paced somewhat well. It was also a timestamp of the 80s. And so this whole new audience was all over it, because it was this analog vibe, you know, shot on videotape and not digital. And so it ended up, you know, having this kind of this time capsule type thing that, you know, seemed to age well. I'm not sure that any of my other projects did, but I've worked in all different genres. And the one genre that I kept coming back to again and again, even with the remake that I did for UPN, was aliens and UFOs. And then when I went, or just before, when I started to, you know, put together my my lecture that I'd be giving at International UFO Congress, I realized that a third of my IP was all UFO alien related, and realized that it's kind of always been there. And I'd read the books and they would come out. I think I went through a period where the last book I had read was John Mack's Abduction or Passport. Maybe that was the last one, or maybe it was one of David Jacobs. But I remember that was it, where I kind of hit the wall and went, okay, I need to take a little break. And so it's been kind of a bit of this and that. And from 2017 on, I've kept one foot in the rabbit hole. And what I've seen is that there's a whole new generation coming up. And I keep waiting for them to step in the bear trap, you know, where they're going to believe everything and say, oh, this and that, but they're not. I have a section in my documentary where we look at the new, you know, UFO researchers. And these were some of the most grounded people. You know, they're coming at this with an attitude that's kind of similar with what I was saying earlier, which is, you know, show me the money. You know, prove your commitment to me. You know, the truth. Prove to me the commitment to the truth, and then I can go there. Then we have something to sit and talk about. And so that was really refreshing. So I'm very, very encouraged with that. Whereas before it was just kind of like, I think everything just got lumped in, and now people are doing more a la carte. I would say that's the biggest thing that I noticed, where it's like, I like this resonates with me, and this doesn't. So that's, you know, first and foremost, the thing that I'm encouraged by. What I'm not encouraged by is anyone saying they have all the answers. They don't. And, be wary of the person who does. That to me is, that's a sign. That's a sign that someone is coming at this from maybe, more of an ego place than a truthful thing, because, as a filmmaker, I don't know everything. I've made, how many films and stuff and projects. I'm still learning, and I always want to be a student. That way I have room to grow. Otherwise there's nothing to learn, or, whatever. But, these people that came out, the one thing that's kind of disturbing is these people who came out and they hijack people and their beliefs, like the Benowitz case, and they get, lauded. These people that have done that, I don't understand that. I know I won't get into it because I forgot who it was on your show last week. Already threw down.
Yeah, it was Chris Lambright talking about the Paul Benowitz case, and Chris will be on sometime in January.
Okay.
Oh, and speaking of that, I should probably bring this up real quickly, and we'll jump right back on that. Is that I just received from Lou Elizondo's wife that he has to do a media blackout. He was coming up in a couple of weeks. He has to do a media blackout until March. So he said that this will be one of the first podcasts, or if not the first podcast he'll be on, apologetically have to bow out for December 14th. So I just wanted to bring that back, but continue on.
Well, I didn't get that email, so I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah.
And I, know his wife as well, so whatever.
Jennifer, man. Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of a little bit of a bump that, how people get made into, again, it's extending that 15 minutes of fame. I've not done another UFO convention since I started my documentary. Right. Not a one. Yes. Because
you were invited
I don't have anything to say.
You were invited to. Yeah.
And I begged to be on just so I could say, I'm not going to do it, just so I can make my point. Because I have nothing new to say, which is why, we talked about kind of my history with the found footage stuff. Sorry for those who've already seen that. I always want to bring something new to the table, because every time you speak, have something new to say. It's an opportunity and shed light where it needs to be shed. So anyway, Yeah.
And, I had this, someone contacted me recently, and they asked me, what are the best UFO videos to watch? And I don't know at this point in the correspondence. I'm not sure. I mean, I get a lot of email. I try to answer every single one of them when I can. And, I'm not sure if this person's looking for, I want to go on YouTube and see a video clip of a UFO, or they want to watch something like The Phenomenon, Out of the Blue, something like that. Those are all really solid videos that are out there for consumption. And I
can think of three right off the top.
Yeah. And I also think that Ross Coulthart's one for Channel 7 that's up on the internet with millions of views. That's a really good one that came out, I don't know, just 2 months ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. And he last week it was announced that he's coming out with something else. I don't know if you know anything about that. You wanted to look into it. I don't know if you had a chance. Did you?
Yeah, no, I have to reach out to Ross and see what's going. But supposedly, I only know this because one of your guests said that, or you brought it up, that he was getting ready to throw down on something. So I'm curious what that is. Yeah,
it was actually someone in the chat room, and I think I'm going to open up the phone lines 10 minutes early, and hopefully Bill will hear that. But we're going to open the phone lines now. So if anyone would like to call in, that number's up on the screen. It's 855-472-5483. I guess the topic of the night, the topic of the night is basically, the state of the union of ufology. I guess we'll put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you looked at this before, obviously you did overall, you looked at this back when you had to create that movie back in 1989. You had to look into it a little bit then. That's prior internet, prior to ways of researching. Did you look into books to try to figure out how you're going to make this abduction movie?
Yeah, there was this thing. It looks very similar to this, which is what I'm going to start reading. And it's a book. They call these books, and they have pages.
Oh, and there's a thing called a library. I heard about that.
A library? Does that still exist? Okay.
Or is it library? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where you put the accent. Library or library. It was funny when I was selling my swag, my videos at the conference, people would come up, a certain percentage of them would come up and say, do you have any books? And I would say, no, but I have something better. I have this. And I realized that was the wrong answer, because books allow you to take it in and to not have a music score telling you how to feel. You can just disseminate, as you want. So big fan of books. But I threw down on a whole bunch of books, even Roswell books at the time and everything. And so all of those were, again, Communion scared the shit out of me. Excuse my French, but it really terrified me, because it was well written, and it was as we say, played straight. And what he was describing, there was just something that resonated with its authenticity. And so it was a big influence. And of course, Spielberg was my first influence. That and In Search Of, that series In Search Of was always my favorite. Yeah, so before I got into actually making content, alien content, I would dip in and out. And then I found that around the 2000s, I went, again, almost full rabbit hole, and have been in there and find it endlessly fascinating. And, I have some theories and some ideas on where the research and the phenomenon is heading to.
Okay, well, we'll touch on that. We have a caller. We'll touch on that. Just remember that. We'll get back to it. Jeff is on the line from Indiana. Jeff, you're live on the air. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Evening, Jeff.
Yeah, I can barely hear you. I just want to say I'm a very good speaker, and I'm usually not very prepared on something like this, but I'm a first-hand experiencer, very close range, broad daylight. I've called him before. Martin probably knows who I am. I sent him a picture here a while back of some stills I've taken of them. I can see them periodically at will. My wife can also. And which proves absolutely nothing, unless, like I've seen it stated a good term, is if you can kick the tires on one, we're not going to learn anything. But we had 40 feet from our face experience of these things moving over us, and it was out of the blue. We were 60-some years old when it happened. I was always interested in it, but we never ever saw anything. And the first thing that happens in your mind is it's racing to try to figure out what you're looking at. And you have nothing in your arsenal, in your mind, to describe what you're looking at, because it is so strange. It is absolutely mind-blowingly strange. It almost gives you a feeling of divinity, like that's something God would ride in, And I was not afraid. We were not afraid. It was like I was just ecstatic. I said, look, these things are real. We're witnessing it. My wife was standing out of the side of the car in a ditch, and I was standing almost on the road because we pulled over to see them. And we were watching two in tandem go away. And then the fellow who lived right there came up there that I grew up with, and I pointed them out to him. And, they're only 40 feet off the ground, and they're moving about 15 miles an hour. And they're this brilliant orange, pulsating to red, almost like a heartbeat. Orange to red, like this red light would. And then a few minutes later, a single came from behind us. And then a few minutes after that, another single one came from behind us. They were all four identical. And I got the feeling, I told my wife, I said, those two that just came over us were watching us watch the first two. That's the feeling I had, like they were watching our reaction. But I researched this, happened in 2012. I researched this. MUFON came out. They wanted me to become a field investigator. I refused because, I don't know if most people don't know this. the majority of MUFON's field investigators have never seen a UFO. They're operating strictly on faith. So they're like guys like me that have seen them daylight. We know they're real. I've had conversation with Jan Harzan. He had the same experience with his brother, daylight sighting like this, very close. And but I just didn't want to. I thought it was being more commercialized. And I was dead serious about this because I saw this. And I don't know if it's disturbing. I don't care if the government came out on every night at 5 o'clock and said, they're real, they're real, they're real. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. You're still not going to, if you're trying to attain the unattainable, we're cavemen trying to figure out God, more or less. They might as well be God because that's how advanced they are, I presume. And really, are we seeing what they are? Or are they projecting in our mind what we want them to see? Are they creating the whole scenario right before our eyes? It's just so bizarre. And yes, Martin, I believe it should be classified in the paranormal because it's definitely not normal. And there's always things I want to say, and my mind goes blank on this. But
well,
it doesn't matter that people don't believe.
Yeah.
You
all right. Well,
do you believe? No. Do you believe?
So
we all believe. It still doesn't matter. It doesn't tell us what they are.
Right.
So,
Jeff?
Yes.
So I have to respectfully disagree with you on two things. Number one is you are a very eloquent speaker. I was there. You visually created it for me there, 40 feet moving silently. So don't worry about you articulating yourself. That was, I totally get it. Second thing is, I said the same thing to Yvonne Smith after I'd gone to her experiencer group. And it was really funny because I showed up there and all of them said to me that I looked really familiar and they were messing with me. I think they were messing with me, like they've seen me on the ship or something before. And so I said to Yvonne, I said, why am I compelled? I'm literally, like last April, I turned down a feature film during the pandemic to shoot a feature film. It was a multi-million-dollar budget, the whole thing. And I turned it down because I had to finish this documentary. I was afraid that I wasn't going to finish it if I paused. And so I said, why am I so compelled? I've never been so compelled on any other project that I've done before. I don't understand what's going on. And she looked at me, laughed, and said, and I said, and I don't get, because I'm not an experiencer. I haven't seen anything that I can quantify as, what is this, object that I've not seen before. And she laughed and said, Dean, they don't have to knock on your door in order to influence you. And so, because, Spielberg's never seen a UFO either, but he sure as hell knows how to make movies about it, and same with Kubrick. So my feeling is that you do want people like John Mack who are investigating this, because they're going to be applying a certain non-projected regimen to understanding this, that someone who has had an experience, although that is very valuable in the field, might not have. It's like a detective doesn't have to be, shot at, et cetera, to go and investigate a crime scene, right? So I would just say leave a little room for those people of us out here that are trying desperately to understand this. Even if it's to get as close as we can to having our own experience. But everyone's trying to find answers. And at the end of the day, the answer doesn't care where it came from, right?
Yeah, Jeff. I think we're having a lot of phone noise here. So, but anyway, I do appreciate the call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. So next on the line we have Ken calling from LA. Ken, you're live on the show.
I just want to say that I've been following this UFO thing for over 40 years, and I have heard so many reports of UFOs happening on this planet. I've heard about so many reports of underwater USOs being seen, and I've also heard reports of UFOs coming in and out of the oceans. So it's kind of obvious to me that there must be some advanced civilizations that live in our oceans. And there was also the story of Admiral Byrd going to the Antarctic and, encountering this other civilization that they actually had a battle with. And I don't think that story is fake. But yeah, and then, our Navy has admitted that they encounter UFOs every single day. So again, it's kind of obvious to me that we're not alone on this planet.
It hasn't been every single day. It's been, I think it skips every few days. No, if you talk to the people who are involved in the Nimitz, they say that they had seen this before. Some people had the week before that was showing up. But Ken, absolutely. I think there's more evidence. And if I was going to point my cameras in a direction, it would be the oceans. I think that there have been so many sightings going in, and everyone assumes that they're from another planet because you look up and you see them as they're flying above the landscape. But it could equally as easily be coming from the oceans and stuff. And the way that they go in, where it looks like the water kind of moves around them with this field that they've created, anti-gravitational field or some other means. So, and the fact of the matter is we know more about space than we know about our oceans. So there already is life there, life that we don't even know exists. So the fact that there could be something even beyond that, I would say we shouldn't be surprised by that.
Well, I also, along those lines, Dean, you have to think, okay, if so they are living under there. Here I am, I'm thinking of this again as what am I trying to say? Human-like thoughts is, what would they be doing there? They can't be going around like, swimming around under there or have any environment.
Don't make me sing the theme to Disney's.
I know, the
Little Mermaid. You're going to make me do
Mermaid.
That. Under the sea, the sea. That's all I have to say.
But no, but it just, what type of environment could they have under the ocean? That's another speculative question.
Well, or it could be that they go through there and they're going into their own dimension. And it's just the way that they're traveling, that it is an actual physical. See, again, we have to kind of say, all right, we think it could be this physical thing, but does it have to be? What if it's something else, that it's not a physical place? It's a, if you were, a portal.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the wormhole stuff. Not that I'm discounting it. I'm just saying that just seems so volatile. It seems like there's got to be other ways to travel than, I think the way that they're doing this is so easy that, when I hear about folding time and stuff, certainly that factors into it. But, when I hear, well, we should be able to go 4 light years away, and if we have the right technology, we could do that in 8 years. That's too long. Whatever they're doing, it's instantaneous. And I think every planet maybe has its own different frequencies that they're tuning in. Why not? We know that the Higgs collider, they've found 11 dimensions so far. So, we're at the precipice of understanding what we don't understand, what we don't know.
That's right. Bill commented, he just sent a chat to me, the ocean may be a barrier to keep us out of reach. And for all we know, they can have underground bases underwater, which is, crazy as it sounds, it's possible. You get down just a short way down there and it's black. There's
okay. Right, but let me ask you this:
sunlight.
How many times? I'm curious. How many times have the projected warnings that the aliens imparted telepathically to these experiences, have they talked about the oceans as well? So if I'm living there specifically, that would be the first thing I would say is, hey, really? Do you need to throw your plastic bag in the ocean? The straws? Yeah. It's mostly above land. They do include it. I know they do. But I would hit that one pretty hard if I was physically living, under there.
I wonder if it's if they eat sushi. I wonder if that's what it is.
Yeah. It might be. But again, why are they going out and coming back? Where are they going? That's why I'm so disturbed when I hear these critics, talk about, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're just, if you see them, they're flying. If they exist, fine, they're flying and everything. It's like, really? You're going to appear here and you're not going to pull over. Maybe you're not going to hit In-N-Out Burger, but you might pull over, stretch out for a little bit, check something. You're not just going to fly through. And if it's a drone, why does it need to be 40 feet long? We have drones right now that are the size of, flies.
Right. That's right. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson recently say, "Why is it only the military that sees these things?" And you know, I mean, what a statement!
You're not paying attention, Neil.
Yeah.
For the past 70 years.
Right. Let's see. Do we still have? Is it Ken? Are you still there, Ken? I think Ken is gone. So the line is open, and that's 855-472-5483. Are you welcome to throw us a question, Dean a question? But yeah, you know, the moving between, you know, the different mediums is fascinating to me because, first of all, you know I brought this up many times, and but why isn't there a sonic boom? And why aren't there splashes in the water? You know, when these things seem to go down into the water, and you know, Mark D'Antonio was on board where a submarine where a vehicle was traveling at several hundred knots. You know, how can something move through the water at that type of speed? This is going back 20 years. You know, it makes you really wonder how, if we are being visited by whatever, what are they and how can they do the things they're doing?
Yeah, again, I think that we have to just look at the simple fact, and if you want to call it Occam's razor or whatever you want to call it, if we had that technology, are we not doing the same thing? Are we not going out to other civilizations and doing, you know, exploratory missions? Of course we would be doing that. We would check out life as it exists. And so it makes sense if we can even just project to our limited scope of understanding how life is, that we would do that. Of course, some advanced civilization, you know, would do that. It just makes total sense. And the irony is smart people like, you know, Stephen Hawking, you know, he's like, we never should have sent out Voyager. That was a mistake because, you know, look at our civilization, what we do. Well, as even Seth Sostak will say, that's, you know, what we've done to our own, but it's not species to species, right? But we've already sent out the signal that we had nothing to do with, and it happened, you know, billions of years ago when we had an atmosphere that had oxygen.
Yeah,
that's a visual stamp. That's right. You know, identifiable. And when the James Webb launches, it's been delayed, but it comes out December 22nd. My hope is that we see something like that. That to me is the smoking gun. If you really want a smoking gun, it's not grabbing them down and you know, a ship crashing, which just, can we take a moment for that? Ship crashes. I need to understand, help me understand how a ship crashes and the government's you know, on-site task force gets there ahead of them sending out a signal to their ship when they can travel so fast. I don't understand that. It makes sense that, you know, things do crash. You know, I have a car. It's, you know, it's pretty stable, but occasionally I got to get the windshield wipers and, you know, stuff happens. But I feel like if that had happened throughout history, there would be some indigenous people that would be cooking this big wok that would be a shell of a UFO and be like, hey, this is their communal thing that we do, and, you know, be repurposed or something. So barring that happening, which I would love to see a crash craft, and I'm not saying that hasn't happened. It's just, I just need to get that over that thing. I think the smoking gun is us finding another civilization ourselves and seeing that. And you know, I think that's the ideal.
Yeah, James Webb will have 100 times the capacity of the Hubble. So, you know, maybe we will see those life signals out there. It sure will be an exciting time once that's up. We have someone on the line, Nicole in Washington. Nicole, you're live on the air. Hello, Nicole. Nicole in Washington, can you hear me? Oh, you know, it may be. I'm sorry, Nicole. Try again. You there, Nicole? Yes. It's Nicole. Hi there. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi. Thank you, Martin. You have a wonderful show. Thank you for all your work.
Well, thank you.
And my question is about whether you feel that the high incidence of sightings around nuclear installations and weaponry could be not as much that they are interested in those sites for the idea of us, having the ability to destroy ourselves, but that the existence of the nuclear matter assists in some way for them to be able to come through, however they're doing that somehow that expressed sort of level of decreased randomness that's created by those nuclear existence of the nuclear material might in some way affect that process.
That's really interesting.
That's awesome. I love that. I haven't heard that one before. Congratulations. That's like the first new theory I've heard in a couple of years. It's interesting because if you talk to the people who research this, they'll tell you that the people who created the rockets for what became the U.S. Space program and the Russian space program both believe that extraterrestrials gave them that technology. So if they gave them that technology, is there a chance that might have also been imparted with Oppenheimer? I mean, it's a dark, version or dark question, but so you're saying that maybe it's not literally like Nicole, that they literally punched a hole through where they created a vortex for them to go through because of the nuclear fallout or the nuclear blast itself, and then they came through that? Because we've had reports of UFOs way before then.
No, not the actual blast, not anything to do with the actual detonation. But in general, it seems like sites that are not actually, detonating any of this nuclear material have so much of a higher incidence, like all of the sites in, all of the areas where we have silos, Montana and North Dakota and all of those incidents up there, that it's purely the fact that enormous amount of nuclear product up there somehow changes how they're able to access whatever way they come through to us might have something to do with what I think might be like a decrease in the randomness of that area, which I think you could possibly extrapolate to some other ideas of why certain areas have higher incidence than other areas, that there might be things such as like high iron containing areas. I don't know that, there's been a lot of research on actually like nuclear producing energy as far as reactors, but I think that would be a really interesting area for research to find out whether there's higher incidence in areas that have reactors. I lived
that are manufacturing it.
Near, 20 miles from 3 Mile Island when it exploded or had its incident. So it's just, and I did have an occurrence as a child of what I believed to be a UFO. And so I just was interested in that as an idea. I don't know if anybody's really looked into it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of, the Chernobyl. They were saying they thought they saw UFOs over before the sarcophagus was built, right after the meltdown. They were saying there were a lot of people claiming that they were seeing UFOs there. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No.
Well, that's exactly the point that I was, feeling like that might be sort of multiple different strains of the same reason, but yet it shows up in different ways, like the Chernobyl having an incident, and then also just like our northern tier of military silos. My father was based in Minot, North Dakota. He's an Air Force officer. And, I think that a lot of those incidents might be more related than we think they are. And I think that it might be something where people have sort of put on a causation of thinking that they're looking at our military nuclear sites because of specifically looking at them as weapons, and that is their reasoning. But I think it might have something much more fundamental to do with how they actually need some sort of, I wouldn't say weakness, but some sort of opening, some way for them to come through to us.
Well, how do you factor in, I'm curious, how do you factor in And I guess Fukushima, we should probably see if there were sightings there when that whole meltdown happened. But how do you factor in that a lot of these sites are given demonstrations? They're not just kind of appearing and hanging out. There have been reports from credible people that worked at these bases where these missiles have gone up and they've had the cones where they've got dummies. They don't actually, they're not, you know, equipped with any warheads. They're just doing an exercise, and they go up, and these rockets have been hit with supposedly beams of light that kind of, you know, these ships will, these crafts, these UFO UAPs will move around them as that's happening, kind of like a demonstration. And then there's also the shutting down. So it seems like, for me, I've always thought, this is just my take on it, I've always thought that it was a demonstration to say, just be aware that we can shut this down at any time. We control this, not you.
I think that's a very valid theory, and I think that that could well, you know, be the case. I think you could also look at it from the other side. If it was this idea that they had more ability to interact with that kind of material, then it might just be that that's something that they're able to do because of the nuclear sort of that decreased randomness in the area, that they can then somehow, you know, interact with it better, so that they're able to affect something that maybe they couldn't actually affect otherwise if there wasn't the sort of nuclear matter in that region. I mean, I think there is always a possibility that it's multiple things, you know, that it's both what you're saying and also that that it somehow affects how they traverse from wherever they're coming, whether that's, as you say, you know,
there's a lot of us researchers who like to say it's all the above and none of the above.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Well,
all your time, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was a great call. Appreciate it. All right. So, you know, while she was speaking, I went ahead and Googled, you know, Fukushima and UFOs, and sure enough, yes, there was orbs, 5 orbs spotted above the Fukushima. So whether that's related in any type of way or whether they were earthquake lights, which is a phenomenon that does happen. This was talking about during the, you know, right after the earthquake. So it could have been just that, but it's fascinating.
Interesting. I wonder if they appear not only in moments of crisis, but if they appear like at the Thriller in Manila when Muhammad Ali was having his big fight, if they weren't there for that big event, because that, you know, kind of a big event, or is it just, you know, crisis moments?
Yeah. Well, you know, it is fascinating, this, and, you know, like my friend says, a friend that I've been speaking to about this, you know, why isn't, you know, when the government is taking a look at this, that seems to me, or seems to a lot of people that are looking into this, why isn't the nuclear warhead shutdowns like a major issue of national security that's not being taken totally seriously and investigated?
Because I think they are, and I would never, if I'm running that operation, I'm not going to advertise at all. Again, as much as I like to put myself in the aliens' perspective, I also like to put it in the military or those who are in the knowing's perspective. You're not going to come out and say, look, we can't guarantee that it's someone else. I mean, if you look at the Fravor situation, it was benign. They flew around and took off. Nice little, you know, kind of aerobatics, right? So I think with this, it's breaching. It's an act of war, an out and out act of war. And if you can't assign that to anything, I think just coming out, I mean, that would be the next level of, again, I hate to use that word, disclosure, reveal, or acknowledgement, I think is a better word, of the military to say that. But it would have to be witnessed beyond that and have to be, you know, footage and stuff. But hey, before I forget, I wanted to say this on your last podcast, that I am, how many 2 years have I been a Patreon subscriber?
Yeah.
I love the fact that your podcast, dude, you're one of the only ones that really don't have commercials. And the reason why you do that is that you don't believe in that, thank God. And so you're like, again, you're like my first go-to. I think you and Alejandro don't do that. And there's maybe a couple more, but that's appreciated. And so that's why I subscribe and I pay, because my time is of value, and I want to be able to give back and hear stuff like this. But also, it's a convenience that comes back to me, because I don't have to sit through ads and hear about My Pillow and other products that I don't really use.
Well, I will thank you for saying that, Dean. And anyone can support the show for a couple of dollars or more a month, and that's the Patreon page is linked right on podcastufo.com. But I will tell you this, that I get contacted constantly. I just got contacted from a advertiser that wants to pay me $250 per show to run ads, their ads on it. And I just decided in the beginning that that's something that I'm not going to do. I don't want to run ads on this. Now there are ads that pop up on YouTube. That's a way to I have that basically to supplement. The graphics are costly, and the things that I do on occasion, cost some money. But anyway, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have like 3 minutes, but going back to the nukes, when I had mentioned this, I just mentioned it, I believe, last week. And also the very first episode of the show is up on YouTube, by the way, on my YouTube channel. So in that in particular, I mention it as well. And that's my insurance broker from years ago had said that UFOs had an interest in nuclear. He didn't say nuclear weapons. He didn't say, nuclear power plants. He just said nuclear. And
did he say nuclear or nuclear?
No, he said anything nuclear. He said, I do remember him saying, it's not just warheads, though, it's power plants or something like that. He said they're very interested in it. And, so why not plutonium? Why not, she was talking about nuclear, warheads and things like that. But why, if that's the case, they have some type of interest, why not into the element itself?
Well, and then how visible is it? If you're, how many feet under the ground doing, plutonium, which are, unless you're certain nations, you shouldn't be doing those. Are they able to track that? Whereas missiles and stuff, they're, at least the silos for it, you could do a flyover and see that they're there. So how visible? Someone needs to do research on that. What attracts them? That would be really interesting, just to focus on that one aspect.
Yeah. Dean, it's been a real pleasure. We're right at the end of the show. I can't believe it went so fast. But thank you. Likewise. As always. You're a good friend. It's always fun to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
You bet. And we'll have you back when your things are, we know when they're going to be released and all that. All right, Dean, you take care.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye. All right, everyone. So I'm going to be back next week with Peter Slattery from Australia. Should be an interesting show. You really have to he's got the real strong accent, but he's a fun guy, and it'll be a great show. So remember, everyone, keep your eyes to the sky. We'll see you next week.